everyone. My name is Stewart, and welcome to another episode of Drill Bits. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about news and how people, investors, people in general should get their information on the mining industry and how to make intelligent investments. And we're actually very lucky to have somebody who knows a thing or two about news and information on the mining industry, Peter Koven. Peter is with Bay Street Communications and is also very well known as the former writer for the mining industry for the Financial Post. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
So, news. Who do you trust? Where do you get it?
Well, we're lucky in the sense that there's so many news sources out there now. There's the legacy media, there's specialty news focused on the mining sector, there's letter writers, there's blogs. So there's lots of information out there. Some of it's better than others, but the important thing is, it's great to read this stuff. You still have to do your own due diligence. I think you always have to look at the company filings on SEDAR. You shouldn't make an investment based on anything that me or anyone else has ever written in a newspaper, put it that way.
No, I think that's a very fair point, and I feel the same way. There's lots of information out there, but at the end of the day, everybody should be responsible for their own decisions and needs to do their own due diligence. But it's also a great way to accumulate information, but then you got to drill deeper. So let's just run through a couple of the sources. So let's talk about the specialty newspaper, like the Northern Miner, for example, been around for 100 years. Very reliable from where I stand. What are your thoughts on the Northern Miner?
Yeah, the Northern Miner is a really useful resource. It's really the only kind of major publication out there that focuses a lot on the junior sector, and a lot of retail investors are focused on those kind of companies. Yeah, it's not, unlike the letter writers, they're not running a campaign for anyone, they're independent. They've got good reporters, it's good quality news. For a lot of these companies, it's a very good place to start.
Absolutely, I agree. Now, shifting gears, what about the Financial Post and that side, the national papers, and how they cover the mining industry?
That's what I did for a long time, so maybe I'm biased, but I think the reporting in those papers is really good. A couple of things to say there, though. For one thing, obviously, it's limited resources, so they cover the majors a lot more than the smaller companies. And when the sector isn't booming, when it's out of the limelight, there just isn't a lot of coverage. I mean, I was covering the mining sector back in 2011 when things were just booming, and there was a ton of focus on the mining sector. You read the papers now, there just isn't very much because there isn't a lot of big news going on. The marijuana sector gets a lot more coverage in the major media now than the mining sector, even though it's so much smaller because there's news every day. So it's a very useful source, but it's unfortunate there just aren't as many people covering it as there used to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's certainly you can trust it. It's unbiased, but I guess the amount of coverage they get certainly in this day when the market has been down is not as much as certainly I think it warrants.
Yeah.
Then there's another source. Talk about blogs and newsletter writers. What's your opinion on that source of news?
I think it's a great place to get information, but all these people have their own agenda. Sometimes it's disclosed, sometimes it's not. So you have to be real careful. But it's a lot of you can get a lot of good information out there. A lot of it's very entertaining. I read them all the time, and I encourage other people to do it. But it's no replacement for doing your own research. That's for sure. You have to keep in mind that these people often have an agenda.
Absolutely, I think that's a fair point. It's entertaining. I follow all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, and it allows me to keep my ear to the ground. So I understand what's going on and whatnot. But again, you've got to take everything with a grain of salt because, as you say, oftentimes there's paid opinions. These people often have angles, and they're not necessarily unbiased like a Financial Post or a Northern Miner. So you have to take that in mind. Now, that leads me to where do you get where's the truth in the industry? And I mean, to me, there's only one spot.
It's SEDAR. Yeah, it's ultimately you got to go back, dig through the company filings, and find the real information there. Press releases are good, but there's no substitute for looking through audited financial statements and MD&A and other disclosure documents on SEDAR.
No, you're right, and I mean, oftentimes these documents are very dry, so they're not exactly exciting to read, but they're there for a reason, and the regulatory bodies put a lot of attention on companies like Orefinders and we spend a lot of time and money and invest in third-party people to audit us and make sure that we're staying on course. And so the system's in place to keep everybody honest, and I think that's really the best place to get the news.
Absolutely.
Right now. So, okay, great. Well, look, thanks again for joining us. I think the message here is really, read as much as you can, but do your own due diligence. So, thanks again for Peter for coming here for Drill Bits, and please stay tuned. We'll have more videos coming up soon.